Hello mates, it's me with you again. I recently shared with you Ghost Protocol, a gripping tale of a former cybersecurity specialist who went to the dark side to hunt for forgotten bitcoins. Today I present to you something completely different. It's no less dark, but it's much more widespread, something that can touch any of us. A reality that thousands of people face every day. The reality of phone scams. Behind every fraudulent call is a person who once lived an ordinary life, had an ordinary job, ordinary dreams and hopes until one day he crossed the line. Have you ever wondered who these people are? What brought them to this point? How do they sleep at night? Today I'm going to tell you the story of a man known by the code name Cypher, a former technical support worker who went from desperate unemployed to the head of a major fraudulent organization in 5 years, and the price he paid for it. This is the story of how one email can change everything. How the words of a stranger can awaken a conscience seemingly long buried under mountains of money. I must warn you, what you're about to hear doesn't excuse scammers. It doesn't make them victims of circumstance. It just allows you to see the big picture. Understand the mechanism so you can better defend yourself against it. And who knows? Maybe among our viewers there is someone who is on the threshold of a similar choice. Someone who can use this story to help them make the right choice. So make yourselves comfortable. Switch off your phone, ironically, and immerse yourself in the world of Cypher, a man who made millions from lying until one situation shattered his world to the core. I never planned on becoming a con man. No one plans to. 15th of October, 2018. It's a date I'll never forget. It was a gray Monday in Dallas, Texas. I worked for the technical support company of a major internet service provider for almost 12 years. I'd started out as an operator and worked my way up to senior technician. I was 34 and I thought I was going to work here until I retired, but one of my colleagues changed everything. That day, we were gathered in the conference room. Process automation, staff optimization, artificial intelligence development. Familiar words to anyone who has been hit by downsizing in the last decade. I listened to a presentation with pre-prepared slides, received a standard severance package and a corporate thermos as a souvenir. 12 years of my life fit into one cardboard box, with which I walked out into the company car park. I was confident that I would find a job quickly. I had experience, skills, references, but after a week, I realized that there were hundreds of others like me. Everything I knew how to do, solving technical problems over the phone, had become redundant. Chatbots, automated systems, voice recognition. Every company I sent my CV to had recently completed a staff optimization. By early November, money started running out. Mortgage, car loan, flat bills. I cut my expenses to the bare minimum, but the numbers on my banking app were melting inexorably. On the 25th of November, I had $347.18 left in my account. The mortgage payment a week later was $1,200. No prospects. The 22nd of November 2018, Thanksgiving. I was sitting at home skipping the traditional family dinner. There was no money for gifts, nor was I in the mood to ask about work. Around 8 p.m., a text message arrived from a former colleague. Let's call him Raven. We hadn't been in touch since he left the company 2 years ago. Hey, how's it going? Heard about the mass layoffs? Drinks? We met at O'Malley's, a small bar not far from our former office. Raven looked successful. Expensive suit, new watch, the confident look of a man who was doing well. I made no secret of the fact that the situation was frankly lousy. After the third drink, Raven made me an offer. Financial counseling, as he called it, helping people invest in cryptocurrencies and Forex. Nextech Marketing, the company he worked for, was officially a digital marketing company. But the real business was quite different. They would call people and convince them to invest in projects that didn't really exist. Are you suggesting I work in a scam call center? I asked bluntly. Raven didn't deny it. Instead, he talked about money, $5,000 to $10,000 a month, about the flexible hours, about how corporations screw people like us every day with no concern for our families, no thanks for our years of work. Think about it, he said, leaving his business card, a plain white card with a name and phone number. No logos, no addresses. If I'd known where my choice would lead, then For 3 days, I couldn't find myself. Weighing it up, doubting it, arguing with myself. On the one hand, a clear offense, deceit, fraud. On the other, growing debts, despair, and the looming prospect of being homeless. On the 26th of November 2018, I stood in front of the Nextech marketing office in the Dallas Business District. Gray skies, drizzling rain. The office was on the 17th floor of a modern business center. Nothing out of the ordinary, a standard workspace with partitions, computers, meeting rooms. People with headphones on were talking on the phone. Others were typing something. Others were discussing business at the coffee machine. Everything looked perfectly normal and legal. Raven introduced me to my supervisor, a man in his 40s in a perfect suit called Mentor. The conversation was short and clear. Yes, what they do is technically illegal. Yes, there are risks, but they are minimal if you follow the rules. But as it turned out later, there was a catch. No real names, just code names. No personal contact with clients. No online traces. The company provides a secure connection. It's up to you, Mentor said, looking me straight in the eye. But if you decide to stay, there's no turning back. All the rejections at job interviews, the empty bank account, the mounting debts flashed through my mind, and I made a choice. I'm with you, I replied. Mentor held out his hand to me. Welcome to the team. From now on, you are Cypher. I stepped over the line that day, not knowing that this journey would drag on for 5 years. I didn't know that I would rise from a simple operator to one of the key people in the organization. I didn't know I'd be teaching others the art of deception, and I certainly didn't know how it would all end. I didn't know that one day I'd get a letter in my mail from a woman named Marge Wilson that would keep me up at night, but that was just the beginning. Over the next few days, I was about to learn how one of the most sophisticated telephone fraud schemes in the United States really works. The 27th of November 2018. My first day of work at Nextech Marketing. I arrived at 7:30 a.m., an old habit from a previous job. The office was almost empty, only a security guard in the lobby. At 8 o'clock, Raven showed up. Seeing me, he smiled. Punctuality is a good quality for our business. Come, we need to set up your workstation. There were 5 computers in a corner of the office, separated from the others by high partitions. Raven pointed to one of them. That's yours. The login and password are on a sticker. The VPN is already set up. You don't need to change anything. The first thing he did was show me the scripts for the calls. 3 basic scripts, each for a different type of client. Newcomers to investments, people with experience in trading, and retirees. For each, a different approach, different hooks. We don't just call random people, Raven explained. We have a database of potential investors. Some we find through social media, some register themselves on our decoy sites. We have a special legend for each one. At 9, the rest of the staff began to pull up. Raven introduced me as the new technical consultant. I was allocated a mentor, a young chap of about 25 called Key. He had already been with the company for 2 years. The first 2 weeks you just listen to my calls, Key said. Then you try it out on your own, under my supervision. I think with your experience in tech support, you'll get the hang of it quickly. He was right. Working in tech support taught me the most important thing: how to inspire confidence in strangers on the phone, how to speak with confidence, how to approach any type of customer. The only difference was that now I wasn't helping them solve their problems. I was becoming their problem. As it turned out later, too much of a problem. For the first week, I just listened. The scheme was more complicated than I realized. The calls were just the tip of the iceberg. There was a whole infrastructure behind them. CryptoNova was the name of our main bait, a non-existent cryptocurrency with a fake website, fake growth charts, and a fake creation story. Allegedly developed by ex-Google engineers, it promised a revolution in payments and 30% monthly growth. Clients were sent a link to a personal account where they could track their investments. Of course, all the growth charts were drawn in advance by our programmers. The money went straight to mixers, services to obfuscate the traces of cryptocurrency transactions. On the 10th of December 2018, I made my first call. Male, 40 years old, mid-level manager from Chicago. Found him through LinkedIn. He had a recent interest in cryptocurrencies. Even wrote a couple of posts on the topic. I followed the script, but added my own phrases. I spoke calmly, professionally, exactly the way I used to explain to clients why their internet wasn't working. Only now I was explaining why they needed to invest $5,000 in a non-existent crypto. You see, CryptoNova is not just another coin, I said. It's an entire ecosystem designed by the best minds in Silicon Valley. Its blockchain uses a unique consensus algorithm that makes it 70% faster than Bitcoin and 3 times more energy efficient than Ethereum. I used technical terms, knowing that my interlocutor didn't understand them any more than I did, but it sounded convincing, very convincing. We are offering you entry at the closed sales stage, before the official listing on the exchanges. This is a privilege for select investors only. When CryptoNova appears on Binance next quarter, its price will increase at least 5 times. He bought it, transferred $3,000 to the cryptocurrency wallet I specified, my first client. After the call, I felt a strange mix of emotions: pride that I did it, adrenaline from a successful deal, and somewhere deep, a prick of conscience, which I immediately suppressed with the thought of my empty bank account. Key patted me on the shoulder. "Nice work, Cypher. You've got talent. I think you'll go far in our business." By the end of December, I was working on my own. 5 or 6 calls a day, about 30% conversion rate. Not bad for a newbie, as Mentor said at our weekly meeting. On the 28th of December, I received my first bonus, $8.5 thousand in cash, more than I earned in 2 months in tech support. That night, I paid off my overdue mortgage and all my other debts. For the first time in a long time, I felt, relieved, but not happy. I didn't know then that this was just the beginning, that pretty soon I wouldn't just be calling people, but developing entire strategies for deception, and that my clients would be not only random managers, but also wealthy investors willing to invest hundreds of thousands in air, beautifully packaged in the words innovation, blockchain, and the future of finance. In the meantime, I was just happy to be able to pay my bills. The moral cost of that joy seemed acceptable to me. I was wrong. 2019 changed everything. By March, I was no longer a simple operator. Mentor noticed that my scripts were performing better than standard scripts and offered me a new position as a script developer and trainer for newcomers. "You have a talent for finding people's weaknesses, Cypher," he said during our meeting on the 15th of March. "Your conversion rate is almost double the office average. We need others to adopt your approach." My salary rose to $15,000 a month, plus a percentage of every successful deal made from my scripts. I moved into a new flat in an upscale Dallas neighborhood, bought a BMW from last year. On the outside, I was the man I'd always wanted to be. On the inside, the person I never wanted to be. In the summer of 2019, we launched a new scheme, Forexalite. This time, we aimed at more affluent clients. I developed a multi-stage strategy. First, small investments with real profits that the client could withdraw. Then, when trust was established, offering an exclusive opportunity with a minimum entry of $50,000. At the time, I didn't realize the scale of what I had created. On the 12th of July, we caught our first big fish, a surgeon from San Francisco. He started with $10,000. A month later, he put in another $150,000. He was personally led by Key, using my script. Of course, he didn't manage to withdraw the money. The site suddenly stopped working, and the phones were switched off. In autumn, our team expanded to 40 people. We had specialists in various fields, programmers to create fake platforms, designers to develop convincing websites, and analysts to compile databases of potential victims. We were no longer simple phone scammers. We became a real cybercrime organization. I took over as head of the training department. I had 12 operators working under me. Every morning we started with a briefing where I went over new scenarios and manipulation techniques. I taught them how to identify personality types from the first phrases of a conversation, how to induce fear of missing out, how to create the illusion of exclusivity and urgency. Never push too hard, I repeated to my students. The victim must think that the decision is her own. Our job is to create the conditions for that decision. Among my operators, 2 stood out, Nova and Shell. The first, a former actress, was able to transform into different roles right during the call. The second, a former psychologist, masterfully read the emotional state of the interlocutor and adapted to it. They became not only my best students, but also the only people in the company with whom I communicated outside the office. We would often meet in O'Malley's bar, where it all started, and discuss new ideas for schemes, or just talk about life, carefully avoiding the subject of our work. By the end of 2019, I made almost $400, money I couldn't even dream of before. But the price was high. I stopped communicating with my family. It was too hard to answer questions about my new career. Old friends were a thing of the past. I didn't make any new ones except for Nova and Shell. Every night, coming home to an empty flat filled with expensive but soulless things, I opened a bottle of whiskey and tried to drown out the voice of conscience. Sometimes it succeeded, more often it didn't. January 2020 was the first time I seriously considered quitting. I counted my savings, figured out how long I could live on them if I quit. But the COVID-19 pandemic mixed up all the cards. On the 23rd of March 2020, Mentor called us together for an emergency meeting. "The crisis is an opportunity," he said. "Millions of people are sitting at home in front of their computers. They are scared, disorientated, and looking for ways to make money in the new environment. We need to adapt our schemes to the new reality." And so we adapted. We launched Corona Safe Investments, a platform ostensibly offering investments in medical device and vaccine companies. I developed new scripts that played on fear of the future. The money flowed. We raised more money in April and May 2020 than we had in the entire previous year. People gave us their last savings, unemployment benefits, even loans, and we took and took without thinking about the consequences. I became Mentor's right-hand man and joined the tight circle of managers. Now, I wasn't just creating scripts and training operators, I was planning the entire strategy of the organization. And at night, I continued to drink whiskey, looking out the window of my penthouse at the lights of Dallas and wondering, when exactly did I lose myself? I didn't get the answer until 3 years later. In a letter from a woman I had never met, but whose words changed my life. By the beginning of 2023, I was at the top. Nextech Marketing had grown into a network of 3 offices with a staff of over 150 people. We operated dozens of fake investment platforms, each with its own legend, each targeting a different audience. Annual turnover was in the millions. There was no trace of the simple operator I was in 2018. I now occupied an office overlooking downtown Dallas, had a personal assistant, and a team of 8 script developers working under me. My fortune was estimated at about $2.5 million. It would seem. The American dream. Except I still woke up in a cold sweat, and whiskey didn't help. The 11th of April, 2023. An ordinary Tuesday. I was going through the emails. One of the many fake ones we used to communicate with clients. Most of the emails were standard. Requests for withdrawals, which we of course ignored. Questions about technical glitches on the platform, and sometimes threats of going to the police. We ignored them too, knowing that most victims are too ashamed to admit that they were scammed. Among dozens of such letters, I saw one with an unusual subject line. "Farewell letter, Marge Wilson." I opened it, just a few lines. "Whoever you are, you of the Forexalite website took everything I had. All of my family's savings, my daughter's college money, even the loan I took out against my house, $726,000. The bank is foreclosing on my house tomorrow. I'm 71 years old. I have no future. I hope you'll be happy with my money. I can't fight anymore. Goodbye. Marge Wilson." I reread the letter 3 times, then checked the name in our database. Marge Wilson, 61 years old, not 71 as she'd written, a widow from Portland. First payment, $15,000, 4th of June, 2022. Last $240,000, the 2nd of February, 2023. I contacted Shell. He was the one who kept her account. "Ah, that old lady from Portland," he said carelessly. "Classic trust scheme. First they let you withdraw small amounts, then they talked you into mortgaging your house. Used a story about an urgent investment in a biotech company developing a new drug for Alzheimer's. Her husband died from it, so I interrupted him. You know she's going to kill herself." There was a pause. "Look, Cypher, this isn't the first threat like that. They all say things like that when they realize there's no money back. It's just manipulation." I wanted to believe him. But something in that letter hit me right in the heart with its simplicity and finality. It wasn't manipulation, it was goodbye. All day I couldn't concentrate. In the evening I didn't go home. I went to O'Malley's, the bar where it all began, ordered a double whiskey and opened my laptop. Found the Portland news for the last 24 hours. It said, 71-year-old woman found dead in her home. Preliminary reports say it was a suicide. Name withheld pending notification of next of kin. 71 years old. As in the letter, not 61 as in our base. But I knew it was her. I was literally turned inside out. I barely made it to the loo. I stood for a long time leaning on the sink, looking in the mirror and not recognizing the person opposite. On the 12th of April 2023, I didn't go to work. For the first time in 5 years, switched off my phone, locked myself in my flat, went over in my head all the excuses we'd made for ourselves. It's their own fault for being greedy. We're just taking money from people who stand to lose it. It's just a business. It all came crashing down. Marge Wilson was a real person, with a real life, real pain, and real death. Because of us. Because of me. The next day I went to the office, and right from the doorstep I headed for Meptog. I'm leaving, I said without preamble. He looked at me with surprise. What happened? A woman from Portland. She killed herself. Mentor sighed. Look, it's sad, but it's not our responsibility. We offer investments. It's up to people to decide whether or not to take the risk. It's a free market. We're offering lies, and you know it, I replied. I'm not involved in this anymore. 2 weeks later, I handed over the business, took my share, a little over $300,000 in cash. The rest stayed with the company. I didn't want that money. I moved out of Dallas, changed my name, my phone, all my contacts, disappeared to anyone who knew me there. Now I live in a small town on the coast. I work remotely as an IT consultant, legally with a normal salary. I donate half of my earnings to a fund to help victims of financial fraud. It won't redeem me, but it's something. I know that Nextech and similar organizations continue to operate. I know that thousands of people lose their savings every day, trusting in beautiful promises. That is why I'm writing this confession. Not for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm writing it as a warning. If you are reading this and thinking of joining such a scheme, stop. The money is not worth what you will become. And if you are a potential victim, remember, no one will give you 30% a month without risk. No one will offer an exclusive opportunity just to you if it's truly valuable. And if the offer sounds too good to be true, it is. My name is Cypher, and this is my confession.